This is assignment 9.2. On these problems, the whole purpose is to use the graph in order to find out what would be the answer to the equation like x squared minus 3x plus 2 equal to 0. So what you're doing is you have a graph, you find where it crosses the x-axis, which one point is right here, and the coordinate for that would be 1, 0. And then the other point is right there, and that coordinate would be 2, 0. And that makes it so that your answers to this equation, x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0, would be x is either positive 1 or positive 2. And that's it. On the next one, graph's already given to you again. So you look where it crosses right here. That's 6, 0. And then this other point where it crosses right at the edge of this graph, that would be 8, 0. So that means your solutions for an equation that's x squared minus 14x plus 48 equal to 0 would be 6 and 8. That's your answer. This graph is zoomed in pretty far, but it would come down and then back up again. The only thing that you're really looking for is where does it cross that x-axis. So these are the 2 points where it crosses the x-axis. This one over here is at -8. And on the right side, it's crossing at a +6. Those would be your two solutions. Those solutions in a graph could be called the roots, or they could be called the x-intercepts. Those are all the same points. They're just using them in different ways. This is a negative graph. So if you look, it's going down like a sad face, negative. The graph is already done for you. So you're just looking for where does it cross, here and here. So on the left side, that's at -6. And on the right side, it's at -1. And those would be your two answers. On this bottom section, it's asking you to use Desmos. You could use any graphing utility, any graphing calculator. It's just that Desmos is free and it's available as long as you have access to a computer and the internet. I think you can also use it on your phone, but it's kind of difficult. It's better to do it on the computer. Some things you need to know about Desmos. If you want to use exponents, like right here, there's this little squared that's a 2 in the exponent. To do that on the calculator, on your keyboard, you're going to want to use that little up arrow right there. And the way you use it is you press shift and press that button, and it'll give you an exponent. So when you're typing them into Desmos, you're going to want to use that button for your exponent button. Kind of like on our graphing calculators, on the TI 30X2Ss, there was that little symbol right there, which was the same one as what's over here, but with the 6. So it'll work the same way. All right, so I had to figure out how I could show you guys the computer screen. So what I did was take a bunch of screenshots. If you go to Desmos.com, you'll come to this screen and you'll see that big red button in the middle that says Start Graphing. If you click on that, it'll give you a graph. And the way that the graph works out, the graphing screen, on the left side, there's an area where you can type in your equation. I believe we've done it in class a few times. I've shown it to you, but now you're gonna do it on your own. So on the left side, for that first equation, you're not gonna use k. You're gonna have to change k for the x. And any variables that you see that aren't x, you're gonna make those your x value, and then the 0 that's on the other side of the equation, we're going to replace that with the y because we want the graph to be able to solve our equations. So on the first equation, when you type it in, you get y equals x squared minus 11x plus 24 instead of k squared minus 11k plus 24. It's a little bit different, but it makes it so that the calculator can do its job. And when you type it in, here's the graph. If you look on the left side of the parabola, you'll see that it's between the 2 and the 4. So that means that it's crossing at 3. And on the right side of your graph, you see that it hits right where the 8 is at. So the two answers that you have are going to be positive 3 and positive 8. For your next graph, you put y equals x squared minus 5x minus 14. So that one, the only thing you're really changing is instead of 0, you put y. And when you graph it, you get a pretty large graph. It goes down really far. And you don't see the entire parabola, but you do see where it crosses the x-axis. So it's crossing at -2 on the left and at 7 on the right. So your two answers would be -2 and positive 7. Number 7, you're gonna put in your calculator y equals x squared minus x minus 30. Instead of the n squared minus n minus 30, you're replacing them with x squared minus x minus 30. And when you do that, here's your graph. On the left side, it's crossing at -5, right between the -6 and the -4. And on the right side of the graph, it's hitting the x-axis, or it's intersecting at positive 6. So your two answers would be -5, positive 6. Number 8, your equation is m squared minus 5m plus 4 equals -2. You have to add 2 to both sides to be able to get the equation equal to 0. When you do that, you're going to get m squared minus 5m plus 6 equals 0. Then in the Desmos calculator, you're going to put y equals x squared minus 5x plus 6. Your graph is going to hit the x-axis at +2 and at +3. So those would be your two answers. On number 9, you're going to type into Desmos y equals 5x squared minus 18x minus 35. And this is the first time that your graph doesn't really line up on the left side to an integer. It's not -2, it's not -1, it's not even -1.5. The way that you can see what the point actually is where it's crossing the x-axis is to go ahead and use your mouse and hover over that point. And when you do that, you'll be able to see the -1.4 and 0 in your coordinate. That means that the answer on the left side is -1.4. On the right side, you can see that it's crossing at 5, but you can also hover over it with your mouse, and if you do, you'll see 5, 0. That means that the coordinate on the right gives you an answer of 5. So your two answers should be 1.4 and 5. On number 10, you have to combine like terms because the 11 and the -2 are both constants, so they combine, and 11 minus 2 is 9. So the equation you put in Desmos is y equals 6x squared plus 9. When you try it in Desmos, you'll notice that there's no graph. But really, what happens is the graph is just not in the window that you see. So you need to zoom out, and if you have a scroll wheel on your mouse, you can scroll in and out by scrolling with the wheel. If you scroll out, you'll get to a graph where you can see that the parabola has a y-intercept of 9, which makes sense because the c value on the equation is 9, and it's a positive graph. So it opens up, and that means it's never going to hit the x-axis. So that means you would put no solution. For number 11, you're going to put y equals 2x squared minus 5x. And the calculator is going to give you a graph where the x-axis is being intersected right at the 0. On the other side, it's halfway between 2 and 3. So it's 2.5. So your two coordinates are going to be 0 and 2.5. For number 12, you're going to put in your calculator y equals 6x squared plus 5x minus 21. And you're going to have to hover over those points again, and you'll get the -2.333 repeated 0 on the left. And then on the right side, you get 1.50. So that means that your two solutions are -2.3 and 1.5.